as the country seeks to position itself as a leading destination for capital in Africa, questions remain about how international investors, particularly from Europe, are responding, to these changes. At the same time, opportunities in sectors ranging from energy and infrastructure to manufacturing, technology continue to emerge. So we examine the state of Nigeria-EU economic relations, the impact of recent reforms, and what success could look like as stakeholders gather for the 10th Nigeria-EU Business Forum. Joining me for this conversation, we have Inga Stefanowicz, Head of Section, Green and Digital Economy at EU Delegation to Nigeria and ECOWAS. It's great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Fantastic, and it's great to have you join at short notice. Thank you so much for joining us today. So we see Nigeria has undertaken significant, economic reforms over the past 2 years. Would you say European investors are beginning to respond, positively? And what evidence are you seeing on the ground?
Well, I think the economic reforms, and there were some important reforms undertaken, take time also to kick in. And for the investors, it's also important to see that stabilization, and the reform process over the long time. So I'm not sure whether, the last few years, how much movement we can see, how much reaction from the external investors to flock into Nigeria in great numbers, but they are certainly looking. And I think reforms such as the FX, foreign exchange reform, the banking recapitalization, the fuel subsidy, the tax reforms and fiscal reforms are very important in that sense because they provide clarity, transparency, and they show a definite direction in which the country is going. And I think for any investor, having those elements in place are very important. And the 10th Nigeria-EU Business Forum is also there to show them, to bring them in and to have a discussion around those reforms and about the potential investment plans the European investors can have here.
From the EU's perspective, what would you say are the most, consequential economic reforms implemented by Nigeria, in recent years?
Well, I think I already mentioned them, right? I mentioned the foreign exchange, which the reform of which brought so much more clarity and order and transparency in the system, even if markets need to struggle with, or had to struggle over time with certain volatility. Now we see the exchange rate stabilizing, and that's already a very good signal and a very positive outcome of the reforms. I also want to stress again the taxation and fiscal reforms because they are equally important for the investors, for the Nigerian businesses investing or doing business here as much as for the government. So the clarity of the system, the transparency of the tax system helps broaden the tax base. That's for the government, the benefit of knowing and being able to count on certain income from taxation that can then be reinvested in the economy, especially into so much needed infrastructure, transport, energy, and social infrastructure like hospitals, health sector broadly, or education, which are critical for the growth of the economy and the growth of the society. At the same time, these reforms give a business this certainty of what to expect from the tax authorities. And that is very important for any business.
Right, definitely. Businesses care a lot about tax and how tax works in the country they want to invest in. So so far, I guess the reforms we've seen so far encouraging for European investors, but you also want to see more. At this point, compared to other countries in Africa, take for example Morocco now. How would you say Nigeria is matching up, when it comes to, tax rules and, the allure, of investment, coming from Europe?
Okay, I may not be able to speak to the details of the current situation of reforms in Morocco, but I can tell that I think 8 years ago, when I first arrived in Nigeria in 2018, Nigeria by GDP was one of the first. It was either first or the second economy of Africa. Compared to, sometimes it was the South Africa, sometimes Nigeria, but they were there. Now we know that the economies such as Morocco, Egypt have taken over, and Nigeria, I think, is now slowly regaining its previous place. So certainly, for foreign investors looking at Africa as a whole, they looking, there's a competition between the countries. And it's good also for the countries to look and compare themselves with their peers on the continent, to see and maybe learn from one another, from the experiences, to see, where they can catch up, what was done better in another country, where can we learn from another reform process to catch up or to even exceed the ranks.
Yeah, definitely would like to exceed, some of these ranks. It's interesting to see how, Morocco was able to overtake South Africa as the most industrialized nation in Africa right now. But looking at the sectors, in the Nigerian economy, where do you think European investors are saying, what, take my money?
Well, there are those traditional sectors where European investors are present, like the oil and gas sector. And although there have been some movements from onshore to offshore, it seems that the situation is also now stabilizing on that market. But for us, from the European Union, we are looking more at the green sectors, and we want to attract European investors more to Nigeria's green sectors. And these are agriculture, renewable energy, circular economy, to name a few. And I think we already can see some movement also from the homegrown investors and companies and the external investors alike. And these are the sectors that are going to be very important for the diversification of the economy. Look at the agriculture sector. There's so much potential there, and I think this is how we are looking at the agriculture sector now. Not so much from the traditional donor perspective, but more as a sector that is really, good for investment, for growth of businesses, and for job creation, importantly, especially for the country's youth. The same for renewable energy. It's such a good and readily available source of energy in the country that I think more and more developers, more and more investors are tapping into, that can help the country's electrification, that can help the businesses lower the costs of doing business for manufacturing, for anything that you do, and of course also help the socio-economic development overall.
Yeah, definitely. Great to see, constant power. Definitely, that will help manufacturing. But when it comes to capital, there's also that, angle of, trying to de-risk investments. Talk to me about the role of development finance institutions, what they're playing in de-risking investment in Nigeria.
We are looking a lot into that because when you see the development goals and how much, and the targets, how much needs to be achieved, no donor money, no matter how much we also source from the European taxpayers or from other sources, also no country has enough resources to really invest as much as to achieve those goals in the shortest possible period of time. Hence, the derisking instruments that we are introducing through our development finance institutions that are helping to bring in the private sector funds for the benefit of developmental investments. So whether in agriculture, renewable energy, these are the sectors that can be interesting for private sector, for private capital, if there are right derisking instruments put at their disposal. So instead of just us spending the money, we can create those buffers, those cushions for the private sector to bring in their capital and also invest alongside us.
So definitely trade. That's another important angle, for many investors. Talk to me about the AFCFTA, the importance of that for, European investors evaluating opportunities in Nigeria.
Well, I think it's a very important step. This is a platitude to say that. But look at us at the European Union when we started building the common market. So I think it's an important step to have that decision and a clear indication of a direction the continent is taking. But it will certainly take much more time and effort to really consolidate, to really build that common market and trade area for the countries to trade more among themselves and make the most of their competitive advantages. But I think it's clearly a direction that is clearly set, and we are of course rooting for Africa to make the most out of it. Also, as our trading partner, it is the continent that is the closest to us. For us, there are clear benefits of trading and investing mutually in our respective markets. So the development of a bigger African market is certainly also good for us together with Europe to do business together, to invest and to trade.
All right, so definitely talking about Nigeria-EU relationship, we have the 10th Nigeria-EU Business Forum. I believe that's coming up. What does success look like, at the end of a meeting like this?
Oh, I think deals. This is what we are looking at. Concrete deals, business done, investments attracted. We already have a great number of European companies who are already investors in here. But we are bringing more from Europe. We want to show them that Nigeria is the market that you can enter into and do business with. We are going to look across many sectors of what we call Global Gateway Strategy. So this is a strategy for sustainable investment in infrastructural sectors also. So transport, energy, climate very much, agriculture, sustainable value chains, health sector, how much the local production and supplies of pharmaceutical ingredients and medical supplies is important. We have learned from the COVID pandemic, just to use that example. So the companies from these sectors, from Nigeria, from Europe, are going to meet there for the 10th Business Forum, and we hope that there will be some concrete deals coming out of that.
All right, hoping for big deals, that benefits EU and Nigeria and hopefully Africa. Thank you so much for joining us, Inga Stefanovic. That's head of section Green and Digital Economy of EU Delegation to Nigeria and ECOWAS. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
You too. All right.